Friends, in just a few moments, we will begin the service from Mrs. Etta Loewenstein. On behalf of the family, I want to thank those of us who are joining on the live stream. Officiating today's service will be Rabbi Baruch Hertz of Congregation B'nai Reuven.
So we stand here paying our respect for Etta, Rachel, Bas Yaakov couple. We'll say first Kapitel Tez Zayin. Michtam LaDavid Shemreini El Kichasisi V'Chamarti L'Adonai Elohim Tavasi Bala Lecha. L'Kdoshim Asher Ba'aretz Heima V'Adirik L'Chefsivam Hier B'Atzvaisam Acher Maharu Bal Asich Niskim V'Dom Val Eser Shmoism Al Sfasai Adonai Menas Chelki V'Chaisi Atatoi Megarali Chavolim Naflu Libanim Af Nachalas Shafra Loi Avarech Es Adonai Asher Yatzani Af Leilas Yisruni Chil Yosai Shivi Sadonai Ledi Sam Midkin Mini Bal Emoid Lachein Samach Libi V'Yagol Kavoid Yapsari Yishkin Levetach Ki Loisa Zev Nashi L'Shol Leisitin Chasidecha Lerois Shachas Tadieni Arichaim Seibas Mochais Es Ponecha Neimois V'Mincha Netzach Kapitel Chav Gimel. Mizmala David Adonai Reile Echsar Ben Ezdashi Abitseini Yamei Menuchis in Ahaleni Nafshi Yeshoivi Yancheni Maglitzedek Aman Shemai Gam Ke'elech Begates Almavis La Yeraki Ato Yamadi Shiftacha Meshantecha Heima Yenachmuni Tarech Lefonai Shulchan Neged Seirai Deshanta Vashem Reishi Kaisi Revaya Achtoi V'Chesi Defoni Kalimei Chayai V'Shafti B'Veis Adonai La'erech Yomim. In Sadik Aleph, Kapitel Sadik Aleph. Yoshe V'Seisa Elia Mitzal Shadi Yisleinan Omer Adonai Machsi Mitzadasi Elahai Eftach Bai Ki Hu Yatzilcha Nepach Yakush Medeva Havais Bevrasa Yasech Lach V'Sachach Knof of Techse Tzino Esechera Mitai Leisira Pachad Leila Mechetz Yav Yomam Medeva Ba'oi Fol Yahalach V'Keta Yashet Zaharayim Yifo Metzidcha Elef V'Vav Min Lecha Elecha Layigash Rak Beinecha Sabit V'Shilmas V'Shom Tire Kiat Adonai Machsi Elyon Santa Meinecha Leisuna Elecha Rav V'Nega Layikra Ba'Elecha Ki Malacha V'Tzabelach Lishmorcha B'Chol Rechecha Al Kapayim Yitzu'uncha Ben Tigoif Ba'oven Reglecha Al Shachal V'Fesen Tidreich Timreis Kifir V'Sanin Ki Vicha Shagaf V'Mateyas Kibeyek Yodishmi Yikraeinu V'Neyu Imay Noichi V'Tzara Achal Seidach Abdeyu Eirech Yom Masbiyeyu V'Areyu B'Shuasi. We're standing here for words for someone, Isha, Achashuva, Etta Rachel, Bas Yaakov couple, where the final Kvura will be Har Menuchis in Eretz Yisrael, and a chance for our community to malava and pay our respect to someone so special and dear to us. The last words of Yoshe B'Seisa, the second to last pasuk, Anochi V'Tzara. It's not a coincidence that both her Petira and the Levaya is a time when the day is turned by a Chazal as Anochi V'Tzara. It's a day of Tzara Yerushalayim, Vanach V'Chanetza, Hufkua, Chayma. It's a day when things are breached. The beginning of Churban was taken away, began. We're told by born in Chazal, and that tzaddikim, Daimin lebeis hamikdash, when a tzaddik, someone special, someone is no longer with us, who lived a life of yashrus, of tmimus, of tzidkus, it's another part of the churban, it's another part of the breach. So this fasting and this idea fits into someone who the loss is big. Today's parsha, Yaakov is standing by his last moments when he called Yosef and his children Manasseh and Ephraim. And he turned to Yosef and asked him to bring me kvura, Shma'ani, make a shvua, you'll do my kvura in Eretz Yisrael. And then he turned and started speaking about Rachel. V'ani b'voyi b'pada me'esalai Rachel, v'it kibras aretz. And in the pasuk in Rashi, which veers up Shutish Mikra, says, what's the story of Rachel? That Yaakov is telling Yosef how Rachel passed away. And none of the tzaddikim of the Avis you find in such great length. True, it mentions Chaya Sarah, but discussing about the Kvura and about the last moments how Rachel passed away. What was Rachel's greatness? That Yaakov tells and turns to Yosef and says, you know the pasuk in Yirmiyahu, which says, Koy Hashem, Kol B'Rama Nishma, Nehi B'Chis Samrurim. Rachel was someone who stands in the high. Why is Rachel so special? Different, what stands out with Rachel? That Rachel, as much as we speak about the Avos and the Emais, but it's Rachel's tears which is going to be a saneger, be a protector for Klal Yisrael. It's Rachel's tears which are going to stand in the hardest times of Yidden and Galus. And Yaakov says, this is the Rachel who is talking about and discussing to Yosef, who had his own journey in life and his own story, and telling about his connection and the power explaining about Rachel. Rachel showed certain inyanim, even in a lifetime, in a chayav, which you didn't see, which obviously we see everybody, but we didn't see brought down. When it came to a question of sacrificing her whole Metzias to be with Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov was the Yaakov Avos, Yaakov Avinu, and she could have married. And she knew that it wasn't what was really her, maybe legal schus. And she gave the simonim to Leah, b'simcha to Levav. She showed compassion. She showed that something which is unique. So when Rachel stands and says for her children, she showed what a mother is. She showed the care of what it means. Rachmanis, compassion, care, and a certain darga which makes Rachel special. That her tefillos, even though all the tefillos will be skabel by the Avis, and we go to Chevra and Avis, and for all tzaddikim oteris, but it's Rachel's keva, which is ala derech, which will be Akash Baruch Hu says ein lesnachem ki yesh sachar. There'll be a final reward. Rachel gets the promise because she gave a simonim to her children. She gave the simonim to Leah, and she showed this kind of midah, this unbelievable midah. Etta Rachel, Bas Yaakov couple, as we all know, I can say the things which we saw. Bechlal was a lady who had unbelievable chesed. Chesed, which is a giving person, raised obviously a beautiful family, but that's one level. But in the level of chesed, She was there for her husband. He should be Badal Chaim Tovim. He should be healthy and well. Wish Mr. Howard Yaakov to have Arichas Yom V'Shanim Tovis. She was there for her children, there for her grandchildren, and B'Simcha. Her whole life was B'Simcha. I personally witnessed how she took care, the Kibbud Av V'Eim. The Kibbud Aim was Silla, the mother. Sometimes we say there's respect for a parent, and we do our shadlos, we do our shibud, and sometimes there is beyond what she did for her mother, and the derech eretz was unbelievable. The connection. I tell you, many of us remember we lived in a neighborhood. How those walks, daily walks. I'm not talking about the walks, the beautiful thing, but when you notice in those walks, you saw a connection, you saw a smile, you saw somebody who was, you saw a beautiful relationship, you saw things which you can learn from, which everyone, and including the children and grandchildren, can learn from. What it means, so many things in those simple walks we saw in the block. We used to go to shul and come back. You saw something, and B'Simcha. You can tell she was not a person who complained, somebody who really enjoyed life, who wanted to be there for her children. To her, Rachel stood up for what's important. You see in the whole life of Rachel, the family, her children, her grandchildren. She wanted to be home for her children. She was a very accomplished woman and had skills and degrees, but that was not her priority in life. Her priority in life is raising Shiftei Yisrael, and that's why Yaakov turns around to Yosef and says, they're going to be the continuity. Because that's what Rachel stood for. This is what her value was, raising the next door. This parasha is called Vayechi. Brought on in Chazal and Gemara. Yaakov Avinu lo yimeis. Yaakov Avinu did not pass on. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean lo yimeis? Chantayos, Avdayo, what does it mean lo yimeis? The Gemara answers one line. Mazarei b'chayim, afu b'chayim. Yaakov lived through the children. You see the amazing mishpacha, who together with the Badal Chaim Tovim, Yaakov is Etta Loewenstein, they raised of children. I wish the mishpacha should only have simchas. The raising mishpacha of both in the Finkels, the Goldenbergs, and the son of Ephraim Loewenstein, who recently also had smicha, and she was able to zeicha to be part of that simcha. The amazing mishpacha of grandchildren going in derech haTorah v'mitzvos, lo yimeis. Mazarei b'chayim afu b'chayim. Rachel is alive with us because this is the der which she accomplished, coming from a place, Amsterdam, and building a whole generation here in America, here in Chicago, and being a dugma chaya for us. What it means, strength, what it means, values, what it means, the ikka b'chayim, the ikka, what we have to do is a tachlis, what's most important. And when Yaakov turns around to Yosef, he says that the bottom line is, Menashe and Ephraim, these two children represent Menashe Nashani Elakim bebeis Avi, Ephraim Elakim be'eretz Ani. It's those two things. They're going to be lihem. They're going to be two shvatim. It's the Ephrani. There's two things in life. One is Nashani bebeis Avi, that she remembered her Mesiris of her Avis. She kept the tradition strong. The base Avi is always important to her. But at the same time, did not forget Hifrani Elakim Beretz Ani, to bring riboy, to create a difference, was there for people. When a person spoke to her, it wasn't just a phone call conversation. She gave the person the proper time, the proper derech eretz, the proper attention. And people asked about, she was an Isha, Etta Rachel, Isha Pikkas, smart woman, a woman who understood things. And it's this concern and this connection which she created ripple effects of positiveness, ripple effects of goodness. And we know that's what Yaakov is saying, this Rachel, Imenu, just like the same idea. What you think happened is going to be unbelievable things. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises there's going to be greater things than you can imagine. This a dar which we raised, a dar of children and grandchildren, wish them only simchas and only brachas, and as a family that unites together in such a hard moment, in a time of, we see a small a destruction. The Beis HaMikdash, we feel beginning of a churban that destroyed, but at the same time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises there'll be a binyan Beis HaMikdash. We will come together again, and we know Bila Amavas and Netzach, Omacha Hashem Dimla Kolponim, the Eibusha should give the family only brachas and simchas, and the Shamash have an aliyah, and there's no question, Lamaila, the Koil Barama Nishma, her voice is being heard. Someone who stood a whole life standing for Klal Yisrael and for family, definitely a voice to be heard to usher in the Mashiach of Tchias HaMesim. We'll now hear from Rabbi Eichenstein, followed by the family.
You all said in Slichas today that there's 4 reasons why we're fasting, why today's a sad day. For all of us here, there's another reason. Such a great loss. Such a tragic loss. For the mishpacha, for our kehillah, for our community, and for ganz Klal Yisrael. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents, all angesinnt, the Rebbe Shlita, and the entire mishpacha. It's hard to summarize a kesher that's been going on for 50 years. I think if we want to summarize it, it would be dedication, devotion. Dedication and devotion that Mrs. Loewenstein had for Rabbi Yaakov Lahavdil ben Chaim L'chaim, for her children, for her friends. Today, being dedicated is not a given. We're used to jumping from one thing to the next, but being able to really be devoted with the ganze Herz, we could call it verzeitisch, something phenomenal. There's a famous story that the Aryeh Levin Zatzal once went to the doctor with his Rebbetzin and told the doctor, "Our foot is hurting." And the doctor looked at him and said, "What do you mean?" And he answered, "My Rebbetzin not feeling well, but we feel so connected that it's our foot." Mrs. Loewenstein's kesher with her mishpacha, with her friends, was that kesher of being mesameach and the simchas as if it's her own simcha, taking care of the kids in Einekluch, doing the utmost, the most dedicated way. And above all, obviously, the kesher at home. The Gemara tells us, Noshma Maika Zachyan, what's chus? A woman Zoiche to Chaya Olam Haba. And the Gemara answers, because they encourage their children to go to the Beis Medrash. Just yesterday by Mincha, no one knew then that we would be standing here today. So I had the schus of going with my Tata Zolzangezind to daven Mincha, and there in the Beis Medrash, I find Ephraim sitting. There were maybe 7-8 svarim open. Today we already have to say Rav Ephraim. And I told him, I'm totally amazed with everything going on. You're able to go into a sugya with such depth. It was Lomdish Svarm that were open. And I told Rebbe Ephraim, you remind me of that which the Gemara says, Achosh b'roishoy yasik b'torah. If your head is hurting, you have a headache, tuzacharayin and learning, and you'll feel better. And Rebbe Ephraim told me Taka feels that way. With all the stress, all the veito going on, being able to tuzacharayin and learning was a tremendous comfort. But that ability to find the comfort in learning is due to Rebbe Ephraim's parents, Rabbi Yaakov and Mrs. Loewenstein, who stellte weg a Stieb, which appreciates Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim. And this is what the entire Loewenstein, Finkel, Goldenberg Mishpacha grew up from day one, seeing and appreciating what it means to live a life of Torah, a life dedicated to Tefillah, and a life dedicated to Chesed. It says in the Parsha, Yisimcha Lekim Kafraim U'Chemenashe. That was the bracha that was given by Yaakov to the children of Yosef who were born to Rachel. Names that are all familiar with us here today. And the Mefarshim ask, why Dafke were Ephraim and Menashe Zoiche to be that role model of children? That ganz Klal Yisrael till this day, if you want to bench your children, you use them as the role model. And the Mefarshim answer, because Ephraim and Menashe were the first children that grew up in Golus. They were the first children who were raised by parents and taught, how do you survive in Golus? How are you able to keep the right ideals, the right ashkafis, the right shifis, even when you're not in Eretz Yisrael, not surrounded by the Beis Hamikdash, by the Mishkan. And today in Asar B'Tevis, when we're starting to mourn the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, it's so appropriate to bring out this vart, that Baruch Hashem, the Nifteres, together with her Choshev husband, Rabbi Yaakov Zolzangezind and Stark, were zoiche to raise that Ephraim here in Chicago, together with their Choshev daughters and son-in-laws. and that we could say, Taka Yisimcha Lekim Kefraim U'Chumenashe. It's very difficult, Rabbi Yaakov, to be standing here there's so much tsar, especially because we feel so close, a kesher of 50 years, a kesher that from my earliest childhood memories, I remember the Loewensteins as being one of the mainstays, one of the pillars of our Besmedrish, with such dedication and such devotion, and have made such a difference in so many different ways. And the Eibishter soll helfen, that Emir Hashem, you should take a bizoiche, Rabbi Yaakov, to be sich mischazik. Emir Hashem, my father always says, vinches on. You should be an active grandparent and parent. You should be zoiche to continue to be involved in raising such beautiful daughters. Emir Hashem, Mrs. Loewenstein, Salhuben Emir Hashem, Alechte Gan Eden, she should be zoiche, and we should all be zoiche to Bila Amovis Lonetzach Umocha Hashem Dimam Al Koponim.
Etta Birenhak was born in 1948 in Amsterdam, just 3 years after the end of the Holocaust. Both of her parents were Holocaust survivors, having been in Bergen-Belsen concentration camp for the last year of the war. Her father, Couple Birenhak, was a great tzaddik. He would buy aliyahs and yontif and give them away to the poor people. He was a big Baal tzedakah. Her mother was a very European lady, and lady is the right word. While her parents were in hiding in Holland, Etta's mother polished the entire house until it glanced, means till it shined. Because even though where she was and her surroundings were terrible, she made the house shine. She was a sweet personality. When her father was arrested for illegally crossing the border, Etta's mother went to the police station and sweet-talked her way into getting him released. Etta grew up in Amsterdam along with her sister Bella. Her father was killed in a tragic car accident when Etta was only 5 years old. Etta was brilliant. She learned Greek and Latin in a Jewish school at the gymnasium level, the highest level of learning for high school in Holland. Her phone was always ringing with friends who she would help with their studies. She also attended a Jewish seminar with mostly boys, but she kept her teachers on their toes with her philosophical questions and insights. Etta was always very, very philosophical. She was very strong-willed. This is a very funny story I have to share with you. We talk about it all the time. When she was only 5 years old, Etta liked to talk a lot, so she was talking in class. So what happened, and those, if it happened nowadays, they would throw the teacher out, but the teacher tied her to a chair. So what did she do? She just got up with the chair and walked around the room. She just ran around the room. Etta and I met in the Yavna convention, Eretz Yisrael. She was attracted to me because I was bald and assumed that meant I was mature. What a laugh. Just this year, we were celebrating our 50th anniversary. I said, "How do you want to celebrate?" And she said, "Let's go for a nice long walk." Etta walked at least 2 miles a day and swam 3 times a week at the JCC. She was the epitome of health. She was by far the stronger of both of us. Etta was very, very European. She insisted that the house always be clean. When we woke up in the morning, we made the bed together every single morning. Etta was always dressed immaculately. When she was once walking with our mechutanim in Navy Pier, and I thank my mechutim for being here today, someone out of the blue complimented her. Our mechutin was amazed and told the story over. Actually, this was not unusual. I can personally attest that this summer, when we walked together in Botanic Gardens, at least twice a week, people would say, "What a cute couple." I guarantee you they weren't talking about me. Etta had many friends and went out of her way to keep up with them over the years. She had the knack of bringing shalom bein adam lechavero. Often when friends of years ago met Etta after years, they asked Etta if she pursued a career because they knew how smart she was. She had a degree in sociology. She smiled and told them she did not pursue a career. She was my soulmate. We did everything together. There were probably less than 5 days in our entire marriage where we weren't together. When Dasi got engaged, Etta had a friend greet Ephraim when he came home from school. Ephraim said that was the only time Etta wasn't home to greet him when he came home from school. Etta very much stressed that our kids excelled in school. They did absolutely excel. When my son, the rabbi, sorry, Ephraim, wrong page here. When my son, the rabbi, had to learn Shas Milim, which is something that everyone goes through in about 7th or 8th grade, Etta would go up to his bed while he was lying in bed and quizzed him on the words. Etta's most outstanding trait, as was referred to before by Rabbi Hertz, was kiva av va'em. When her mother got older and frail, we gladly had her move with us into the house with us. And someone said to her, "Wow, that's an eternity." That's a negative remark, but it wasn't really. Etta also did the shopping for my mother and made her chicken every week. When Etta's mother was sick in her final illness and was inpatient for 2.5 months, Etta lived with her in the hospital for the entire time. She only came home maybe to take a shower, but she was 2.5. You couldn't do that nowadays in a hospital. They won't even let you stay there overnight. I recently heard a mashal. If someone filled a cup with salt and added water and asked someone to drink it, they wouldn't. If they took the same cup and threw it in the stream, you wouldn't taste the salt. While the last 2 months of her life were like the cup of salt, the 50 years of blissful marriage were like drinking from the fresh stream, and those 50 years are what I will dwell on for the rest of my life. Etta raised 3 wonderful children with me who learned kibbut av v'aim from their mother. K'nai Nahor, we have many grandchildren from the same shnit. This is very unusual, but I have to share it with you. Yesterday in the hospital, and she hadn't been feeling well for some time, she suddenly became very animated. When I walked in, she said, "Howie, where are my clothes? I want my flower dress, my makeup. I'm going home today." Her enthusiasm had returned and she was bubbling over. And then, just as Asar B'Teves began, she said, "I'm nauseous," turned over, and she went home to Hashem. I would like to thank my kids for being with us for these last months, and they were always good to us during good times as well. I would like to thank Dr. Grimblatt, who was just a phone call away at all times and intervened on our behalf with the hospital. I would like to thank the Chicago Center, and particularly Rabbi Matzliach and Rabbi Beider, under the guidance of the Rebbe, the Rav, and the Nasi, for the tremendous chesed they did. Particular mention goes to the Rebbitzin, who has a special kesher with Etta for 49 years. Rabbi Aaron Wolf made it possible for us to stay in Evanston for many Yom Tovim and Shabbosim, and Annie Merlis has always quietly done much chesed to us during the past months. Finally, I would like to thank Hashem Yisborach for giving me such an Eishes Chaya.
I'm not as prepared and polished as these other people. Eishes chayil miyim tov rochach mipnei michra. Mommy, you were everything for so many people. You were the best wife, the best mommy, the best Bobby, and the best friend that someone can find. You were my strength. You were my backbone. As a kid, had this chus of being home a lot recently. So I look at some of the pictures, and I see your hand on my shoulder in many of the pictures. I remember when you used to take me to the park for hours and sit in the sun while I was climbing around in the park. And you were just totally dedicated, whatever I needed. When I got older, I remember me and Avi Nidikman, we didn't, instead of going to camp, you took turns with Marna, and we went on trips every single day. And you had all the time in the world. You took me and David Zuckerman to the pizza store. You weren't too happy about when we had our burping contest, so after that you gave us the money and said you could go ourselves because you always wanted me to have proper manners. As Daddy mentioned, it was actually 2 times that I remember. 2 times total. I don't know if anyone else could say such a thing, that they only know of 2 times in their whole elementary school life that they came home and their mother wasn't home. And I only remember 2 times. Maybe it was more, but definitely wasn't much more. You had tremendous dedication, like Daddy said, with the Shas Milim, actually. And what was the purpose? What was the purpose of that? The Shas Milim pushing us. She told me this many times. The purpose was that she wanted us to have a healthy self-esteem, a healthy work ethic, and to be successful and to be strong, to give us the strength. The point was to give us the strength. She felt that if you're successful, then you'll be strong. And she pushed us very hard in a positive way to excel in order so we have what we became, and that's how we became who we are. You were my advocate. You believed in me. You believed in us. You believed in everyone. You always believed in everyone. When I got older, I realized how sophisticated you are. You weren't just an amazing mommy. You were brilliant. You had such a hush for people. When I would talk to you on the phone, I realized how psychologically in tune you are, and I could talk to you about anything that I would want to talk to you, and you always had the right answer. Always had the right thing to say. Always had the right thing to say. I remember I was in Shidduchim for 5 years, and you would always come back at lunchtime. I would call you up. You'd always rush back because you didn't talk on the cell phone or in the car. You always would rush back home so that you were home for me, so you could talk about Shidduchim, or not about Shidduchim, about life. And you were just there as a support. During the hard times, you were always there. It's hard not to have you. Well, you are here still, but it's hard to move on. Your whole life was about giving to your children, building them up. This past Shabbos, we had this chus of spending time together. And as we all know, that Shabbos was very special for Mommy. Just 2 Shabbos, I think it's later in my speech, but just 3 Shabbos ago, right before you were in the hospital, myself and Shira were there in the house, and you sat at the table for the entire meals, even though it wasn't easy for you, but you did it, and you enjoyed it, and it was very nice and very pleasant. I have very fond memories of all the Shabbos with you. So this past Shabbos, we were talking in the hospital, in the ICU, and you said, we were talking about what we were looking for, what she was looking for in a husband, and she said that she was looking for someone who she could build the Yiddish home with. And I think I'm skipping. Oh yeah, here. And I asked you, what does that mean? What's a Yiddish home? And I just wanted to get her to talk about it more. And she said, a home that people care. This is the last Shabbos of her life. A home that people care about people and care about, and are caring. And she was trying to find the words, and the nurse was interrupting us, of course. And she said, a home with Judaism. And I remember her telling me that every hour of Shabbos she would daven for all the Doros to be from. I remember watching that. You didn't care about profession at all. It was all that type of stuff was narishkeit to you. You were very humble. You didn't care, which I'll talk about later. You cared about your family. You cared about giving. You cared about giving to your grandchildren. When, as all the Einiklach know, at least the ones that were far away, but I'm sure the ones that were close to, Bubby doesn't come without presents. Bubby always comes with presents. When she went to Eretz Yisrael to visit us, she would have us buy the present. She's like, make sure you have a present ready when I come. She would ask me 5,000 times. And of course, I'm a little bit more last minute. I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it. And she would keep on asking me, do you have a present for the kids? Your son-in-laws and your daughter-in-law, Shira, were like children, literally like children. Shira told me how she said that you were her biggest fan. You would always compliment everything. You're so good at this. You're so good at that. Everything. You're the best cook. You're the best this. You're the best this. You're dressed so nicely. Oh, that's so beautiful. Everything was amazing. And on that topic, you didn't just give. You had an ayin tova. You saw the good in everyone. And you've taught me, you've had the most diverse group of friends, from European people to Hasidic people to Heimish, American intellectual Rebbitzins, the full gamut. In Eretz Yisrael, when you go to Eretz Yisrael to visit people, you'd visit this type of person, that type of person, you wouldn't see them both in the same room, but you were best friends with everyone. And why is that? It's because you saw the good in everyone, and you saw how to connect to a person, to a Tzelem Elokim, to a person, and to what a person represents. And you saw past the superficialities. As we all know, your relationship with Daddy was something for more than just for the books. You can't describe it, as everyone knows from the walks and everything. My brother-in-law actually said, my brother-in-law is pretty perceptive. He said, from marriage, Ariel, he said that one time they were at a meal by Ariel, and he commented on how close Mommy was with Daddy. And it struck him, just by sitting at a basic meal. And the Chovos HaLevavos says, I don't remember the details, but something along the lines that a relationship with the family, a good relationship with family, is done in a proper way, which is the way you did it, is, I think, the ultimate expression, but definitely a very strong expression of Ahavta L'Orecha Kamocha. It's not just the family, it's the spillover. And that, if you see someone who has those proper relationships, that's a siman that you did the right thing, Mami. You did Zeklal Gadol B'Torah. You did V'ahavta L'Orecha Kamocha the right way, which is one of the basic pillars of Judaism, as we know. You were the opposite of superficial. You had the same exact kitchen for 46 years. You never felt the need to redo it. You would even make fun of the concept of redoing a kitchen. You weren't attached to Gashmias at all. You were not attached. You loved going outside and being in the sun and those type of things, but Gashmias, it was just not a part of your being. You taught that to us, and they talk about how when the neshama goes away from the guf, that it's hard to detach from the gashmi, and it's a big tsar for the neshama, and everyone experiences that. But I would assume that in your case, it was less than many other people, because you weren't so gashmistic. You were very, very spiritual. You had no you had no gaiva. You didn't care about profession, like we all mentioned. You basically never got insulted. Like, it's unheard of. Like, he would stop us from insulting other people and for acting inappropriately to other people. You would always call me out when I wasn't doing the right thing. But you, for yourself, you didn't care. You didn't get insulted. You had such thick skin. You didn't care. All you cared about was what's right in other people. As we mentioned, your kibbut avim was beyond legendary for Bubby and Oma. Rabbi Hertz, I remember him saying at Bubby's Levaya that when he would walk with his children in the street, he would point across the street to my mother, who was walking with Bubby, say, if you want to know what kibbut avim is, look across the street. That's what kibbut avim is. When he was trying to educate his children on kibbut avim, that's what he would do. You didn't drive so quickly. I remember when I finally got my permit, it was very nice for me to be able to take the wheel. And it took you a long time to get places. And you would like to go to Burlington on golf. And you said this you said this with pride many times years later. You just said it probably recently. And the Burlington Golf was very far. I think it took her more than a half hour. I don't know how long. It took her a while to drive there. She would go there. She liked shopping, find the right Metzias. And she would try to find, she would be there. And this is when Bubby was older in our house. And she would find this and that, and she'd still have to look around. And I don't get the exact details. I'm assuming because the line in the checkout was too long and she couldn't go. But she had to come home because she had to give Bubby her meal at exactly this time. And Bubby was also pinkling. So what did she do? This was Kaseder. What would she do? She would take her the clothes, put it in some rack, and hide it somewhere. And she'd go back and forth. And she'd drive all the way back, make lunch for Bubby, and go all the way there. You basically spent the whole day going to Burlington because you had to go back and forth. And that was to take care of Bubby. When Bubby was in our house, it was a zechus. And I feel that way. We were educated to the zechus and what it means to do kibbutz of aim. When we were in Eretz Yisrael, when she was older, instead of going up north and staying for a few days, we'd go back and forth. And that was before they made the roads better. It wasn't easy to go back and forth, and we did it because we had to be back for Bubby. You would make French toast for her. Oh, that was the difference. So 2.5 months you're in the hospital. It's unheard of. You were just in the hospital. We were just with you, and we weren't allowed to stay there late. But to have one single person, to be in the hospital for 2.5 months and go home just for an hour a day, and maybe go for a walk in whatever the name of that park is, that's unheard of. It's your kibbutz of aim, mommy. You're supposed to get arichas yamim, and I'm sure that Hashem gave you arichas yamim, whatever that means. But you're going to go to Hashem and you're going to tell him that I'm ready to cash in for my real arichas yamim, the Olam, like the Gemara says, and you'll get it. And he did it all with simcha. Your kibbutz of aim. He taught us to respect the previous generation. You taught us to respect Masorah. You were always connecting me. There's so many stories. Like Daddy said, that, we have to ask Mommy. We don't know the stories. You connected me to the Holocaust. You connected me to everything. And Bubby also connected me. You connected me to Bubby. And you connected us to Har Sinai. That's really what it was. And that's what a Yid does. And that's what you did. You took care of Auntie Rain after Bubby passed away, even before Bubby passed away, but you called Auntie Rain every single day. You called Bella every single day when Bella had her situations. You were always giving. When Bubby passed away, she always took care of Oma. You were always taking care. Your perseverance was unmatched. There's a story that my parents have with the lox boxes that in Erie Crown they sell these lox boxes. Everyone in Chicago knows what this is. Basically, on Thanksgiving night, you got to load up this is 8th grader is going to load up their car to deliver the lox boxes that they sold. The classic Loewenstein, we sold probably like more lox boxes than the whole school combined. So we had a lot of lox boxes. There's one other family that was also good at that. So they also had a lot of lox boxes to sell. Now we both had similar cars, station wagon, I assume, right? And it wouldn't fit into the station wagon. So Mommy, or I don't know if it was Mommy or Dad, but they both have the same schnipp, but they both have the same exact perseverance. They said, what do you mean, that lady, she sold the same amount of she fit into the station wagon, so that means we could do it. So what do? Daddy's like, we can't do it, I think. That's the way, I remember the story that Daddy said, we can't do it. Mommy's like, what do you mean, they did it? And then Daddy's also has the perseverance, they did it, they figured it out. Of course, the next day they find out that the other person did 2 trips. You pushed me with Shas Milim, you pushed me with everything. Just recently, you weren't with it. I flew in on Monday. Dasi was here. Dasi got to talk to you. By the time I got to the hospital, you weren't with it. Until Thursday morning, I think. Thursday afternoon, right? I don't know. Either way, Friday morning we come in, when you had more koach, and you tell me, I made it. That was her line. I made it. And she said, I guess I'm alive. That's what she said. And what was that? She was talking about her perseverance. Obviously, Hashem is the one that's in charge, but she was a fighter, a real fighter. And she taught us about that. On Shabbos, Zmira, when we say Zmiros, when there was a lot of Zmiros, your eyes lit up. You moved to side to side. If I would walk into the house sometimes and I see your face, a certain face that you had, I knew that someone just sang Zmiros, that it lit up your face. The last Shabbos we spent with you in the home was so precious. I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's written in my notes now. It was so precious to us. It was so precious to me. And the last Shabbos in the hospital was extremely precious. I know I could say pretty much, I would assume that this last Shabbos you totally followed Kehal Chasa because you weren't really moving much and you were with it. And you could take that up with you to Shemayim. And that's why we are pro-life, by the way, a little plug for that. Because Baruch Hashem, she had that last Shabbos and she had that time with the family. And you're going to take that with you to Shemayim. We found out about this. I found out about the beginning of this process in the Sukkah on Motzei Shabbos Chol Moed Sukkos. I'm not so Hasidish. You could speak to the Hasidim here, but it's called the Tzila Demnusa, the shadow of faith. That's what the Sukkah is. Hashem, this is a message for the family. Hashem takes care of us. The Orcha Tzadikim says in Shar Simcha, I think it's Shar Simcha, that if a person does tshuva, which we did on Yom Kippur, and we all tried, and Mommy said she tried, and she did, and she always says, I tried. That was her unassuming way of saying, I'm doing everything in the world. And we had a very productive Yom Noram this year. And the Shar Orcha Tzadikim says, if you do tshuva, and then things seem to go south, that's not because things are going south. And it's not because your tshuva is not accepted. It's the opposite. It's because your tshuva is accepted, and Hashem has his cheshbonos. He gives you some sorrows in the world, and that's what we're going through. Hashem's taking care of us. The Chovos HaLevavos says that, I said this at Yosef's bris a year ago when things were good. I said at Yosef's bris that when you have such a tova from Hashem in the good times, that makes us recognize how Hashem loves us, and it helps us through the hard times. And I feel that way. And the Orcha Tzadikim said, the Chovos HaLevavos says that Hashem, we should have simcha b'chol inyan sheyati kehu elav, even if it's kenegativo, because we trust in Hashem. Because Hashem only does hatov b'chol inyan. Hashem is able to do whatever He wants, and He's in charge of us, and He cares about us more than we care about ourselves. He does it just like, and this is very apropos for Mami, kasher tasa ha'em ha'chomel sat livna. Hashem cares about us just like a mother who cares about her son. Sometimes you have to change diapers. You do things that babies don't like, and they cry. But obviously it's for the best. We have to strengthen ourselves and recognize that everything Hashem does is for the best. And Hashem, you love us, and thank you for everything you do, including this. Because if it's a tava, if it's the right thing, as Bobby said, then Hashem is good. And if it's good, that means if Hashem is good, that means Hashem does what's good, and that means it must be the right thing. If Hashem wilt, then it's good. That's what Bobby said. Rabbi Renner told me, Rabbi Renner told me from my Rosh Yeshiva, Birenhak Zatzal, that when someone passes away, she does more in Shemayim than she could have done in this world. And that's a fact. So as difficult as it is for us, she's doing more for us in Shemayim. Mommy, go to your father, go to your mother, go to Oma and Opa, go to the Friedrichs, and tell them what you always did us. I tried. Because that's what you did. You tried, you loved, you showed us what's right. Say hello to them for us. Some of them I never met. Tell them to take care of us and be Meis Yosher, and you should be Meis Yosher for us. I would like to thank Dr. Grimblatt, the Chicago Center, and Rabbi Wolf. I just told Rabbi Hertz earlier that, having the comfort that Rabbi Wolf gave us at such a hard time it's very meaningful. Dasi, Mommy always spoke about me, always appreciates everything that everyone does for you. Mommy always spoke to me like every other minute. I'm so lucky I have Dasi. She does everything. Dasi does everything. It's true. It's not a question. Dasi and Mati and the Einaklach and the kids, everything. Words cannot express the Hakar Satov that I, especially being far away as we have for you, and may we continue to be mamshech in doing this, and may you have much bracha from everything that you've done for us, and with such a smile, just like Mommy, with no ego whatsoever. And it's a real bracha for us to have you in Chicago. Aviva, your sleepless nights to take care of the family, especially in times of tzara, are also unmatched. Every single doctor's note you know by heart, every single detail. We joked around that you're our hospitalist. Every single detail in the care, every detail, every dosage, everything Aviva was on top of. Aviva came in, Aviva spent a lot of time in the hospital. And Baruch Hashem, our family is close. And I have a lot of HaKarsov to you, Aviva. And our Baruch Hashem, our family is close. On behalf of the family, I want to ask Mechila, Mommy, you did what was right. And we were young, immature, and we didn't respect you the way we should, especially because you had no ego, so it's very easy to trample on that, even though you didn't let us trample on it, but it's very easy for us to do the wrong thing. I want to ask you, Bechila, I think as we got older, we learned from your ways. As I got older, I should speak for myself, I learned from your ways. I learned to be a little more mature and to take care of our parents. May you be a zchus, may you be a Meilz Yosher for the entire family, for all the grandchildren. I'll say on a personal note, it's very difficult for me. My children are very young, aren't afforded that which I was able to have with my puppy. But Hashem knows what's right, and you're going to do more in Shemaim than you could have done here. So whatever they would have gained here, you're going to gain when you're in Shemaim. Bila Mavos Lanetzach. You say Hashem's name? I say Hashem's name or say Hashem Elokim? Huh? Bila Mavos Lanetzach Umacha Hashem Elokim Dima Me'al Kopanim. Mati.
We're here today on a Asura B'Teves to both mourn and appreciate what Mommy's essence was and how to emulate her ways. A lot of times people come up to me and say, how do you raise successful children nowadays? And I always say, you know what, ask the experts. Today I'll give you a secret. Number one, she loves spending time with family. We all remember the countless Shabbos meals we spent with her, especially after I brought COVID home and I shared it with everybody. Then she was no longer afraid to come to us and eat with us as a family. Before she felt safe to return, and as soon as the shuls reopened after COVID, she used to be waiting outside, wishing us good Shabbos and interacting safely outdoors. As an active person, during those 5 months or 6 months before anything became normal, quote unquote, she was basically sitting at home in an isolated state, and it was driving her crazy. But she was so happy in December when she found out that, there's soon going to be that COVID shot, and there's soon going to be a vaccine, and soon going to be able to finally get out. And she was very clear that her happiness knew no bounds because she could finally be with family again. On Sunday, January 3rd, I was able to procure 2 COVID shots at an undisclosed location, provided that I personally bring them there. Having barely recovered from COVID myself, I stood there using a cane for 3 hours until they were taken care of. On their way home, Daddy called to thank me for arranging it. I said they're traveling the Tuesday after they're considered fully vaccinated, so they don't have to wait any longer to see Aviva and family. So family is number one, that closeness. Number two, on how to raise a successful family. She lived a Yom Tov Dik life. She understood the essence of Simcha. The last public appearance, and people can say it, and people have seen it, and people can all attest, her last public appearance was at the B'nai Ruvain Simchas Beis HaShoeva. That was an event she never missed. In fact, I still remember when Bubby was niftaris on the 15th day of Cheshvan in an Iber year. And we spoke after Shloshim. And Mommy said to me, you know what? I'm so happy that the full 12 months is going to be up in time for the B'nai Reuven event. So she can spend and not have to worry about any availers, about anything. You know, this is her Yontav. This is Simchas Beis HaSheva. That's the ultimate. 2 weeks ago, on the first night of Hanukkah, she invited over the family over such a good Freilich and Hanukkah and give out sufganiyot, etc., etc. We will always remember what Tu B'Shvat signifies in our family. Tu B'Shvat signifies the day that she always booked the Pesach apartment in Eretz Yisrael. Her mind was always on Simchas Yontav. How can she enhance the Yontav? How can we make it happier? How can we just, get as much in as possible? So a happy life, Simchas Yontav, Yontav on Shabbos is the ultimate. Number 3, and this is so important, in all aspects in life, especially in raising children and in living your life to the fullest, her determination and willpower, which everyone already discussed. As Annie mentioned, Mommy's father was nifter when she was a very young girl. She had every reason to curl up into a fetal position and say, I'm a nebuch, look at me, my b'diavad life that I was thrown into. You know what? Pity me, roll out the red carpet, do whatever I want. No. Instead, Mommy persevered and was determined to live a life with simcha. And back to the Shas Milam Ephraim, we didn't let go of you. Around 24 years ago, after trying to hack Ephraim Shas Milam into his head, and it wasn't easy, I remember her, she turns to me, she sits down at the kitchen table, and she starts laughing, and she says to me, now the schools expect the mothers to learn Gemara too. So I said to her, okay, Mommy, so what does Yeh Shalom Adas mean? You've been hacking them for whatever. So no, what does it mean? So she looks at me, she shrugs her shoulders and says, it means giving up hope is only if you don't know what you're missing. She always said that giving up is not an option. And you can hear that 1,000 times. You know what? Like, I can't take it anymore. Not an option. Giving up, not an option. So again, impressing that and continuing on, no matter what goes on in life, no matter what life throws at you, giving up is not an option. Determination, the grit, that's the ingredient for success. And number 4, the main thing is the love of Torah. One of her final nachas moments in the past few weeks was watching Ephraim, who already had a bachelor's, a master's, in Israeli rabbinic ordination, reach the ultimate goal of getting the Chavetz Chaim Smicha. She actively encouraged Jossie and I while we moved around the United States on the day school movement train. She actively encouraged Daddy and I to keep on learning and making siyumim. In fact, her last meal that she was with us, in the sukkah, she only came for one meal, or should they, but whatever, but the last meal that she was really enjoying herself. She was so happy that we had a minyan of a family together on hand as I made a siyum on Masechtas Yevamos in the sukkah with a minyan. And we also had one of Eliza's many birthday parties during that time of year. I don't know, she must have had 10 in this year, so she's really growing up fast. So we as a family, during this whole period of time, we did everything humanly possible, honestly, humanly possible. Like, the nurses over there said, like, you know what? She fought the good fight. But humanly, you did everything possible and then some to keep her going. And we will forever treasure the memories and will always follow in new ways. But the one positive that everybody over here, you can take it to the bank. I promise it to you straight up. All right? Now that Hashem knows who he's dealing with Mommy. As it says, Hashem came down to the garden, Veloket Shoshanim. He took a rose. He picked a beautiful rose over there. He knew which rose he wanted on a Aseret B'Teves. And we're remembering, the Churban and remembering that. He knows who he's dealing with Mommy. Because I guarantee you, now that Mommy's going to go up to Shemayim, she's going to walk over to Hashem and come close to the Kisei HaKavod, and you can rest assured she's going to tell Hashem, it's time for Mashiach. You can't wait. It's not an option. That's her thing. It's not an option. You never give up. Keep that determination. Keep that grit. Obviously, everything that we've tried and all our davening and everything like that, Hashem had his ways. Hashem was merciful. Hashem, and we're left to go ahead and emulate her ways, and she should be Melas Yosha for us and all of Klal Yisrael.
Parshas Chayei Sarah, Rashi says about Sarah, when Sarah passed away, Kolzman Sarah Kayemes, the whole time that Sarah was alive, Hayaner Dolek, Erev Shabbos, Erev Shabbos. There's a candle lit from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos. Bracha Mitzuya Be'isa, there was a bracha in the dough. V'anan kasher al ha'ohel, there's a cloud over the tent. And Mishnah Mesa Pascha, when she died, it was gone. Mommy's house was full of bracha. It was full of kedusha coming out of every corner. Her house was full of life. It was full of color. Anyone was welcome in her house. There was guests there all the time. Family was there. Friends were there. We used to come every summer many years ago, and we were able to do it. We would come with our destructive kids. They would run around her beautiful house, and then she invited us back again. Her house was really beautiful. It was very delicate. She had crystal in the living room, and our kids would run around and break things. Not so long ago, I took some of my kids around. I started showing them all the things they broke when they were little. I said, "You see this piece of wallpaper? You ripped it off when you were 3 years old. I glued it back on. I fixed everything. And then Mom welcomed us back again as if nothing had happened." It's not that it didn't bother her when they broke things. It bothered her very much, but she wanted us so badly. It didn't make a difference. We would come to her house. They would give us our cars to drive. Mommy would buy me my favorite foods. When we come for Yantif, when we come every Yantif, not every Yantif, when we come for Yantif, or whenever we come, sometimes we came in late at night. Sometimes we came in after midnight. But whenever we came, there was always a hot meal waiting for us, and every bed was set up. Every kid had a place. It wasn't necessarily a bed because there wasn't enough beds. But every kid there, whatever they were sleeping, was all set up and ready for them. Even recently, it wasn't so easy for them. It wasn't so easy for Mommy and Daddy, and they made sure everything was ready for us. This was a house of bracha. This is the tent of Sarah with the cloud over the tent. Mommy was very educated. She was very smart. She could have done a lot of things, but she chose to be. She chose achnasas archim. She chose family. And because that was what was important. I know this is repetitive, but I'm the last speaker, so that's the way it is. But Bobby was in her house for years. How many years? I don't know. 10 years, whatever it was. And she took care of her every single day, for hours every day. I have to say it, even though everyone else said it, I have to say it because I saw it. So if you see it, you have to talk about it. She did everything with her. She took care of every single need, every physical need, every emotional need. She walked with her. She took her to the doctor. She made her every single meal herself, exactly the way she liked it. Bubby wanted her toast a certain way. She made it that way. If she didn't like it, she made it again. I saw it. My kids saw it. So now we know what Kibbud Av V'Em is. Her house was full of life. It was full of color. There was flowers everywhere. Every wall was covered with pictures. There's another thing I wanted to talk about. When I was young, I heard about a stereotypical Jewish mother-in-law called the shviger. And the stereotypical Jewish mother-in-law doesn't really get along with her son-in-law or in-laws, and they can't really be around each other for too long. She's critical, and I've heard of such a thing, and as a kid. But when I grew up and I got married, I didn't see anything like that. The mother-in-law that I had was the opposite of that. And this is going to be repetitive again, but it means a lot to me. Mom used to tell me, she used to tell me how good of a father I was. She told me all the time. For 18 years, she told me I was a good father. 17 years. She told me I was a good father. She said it with such enthusiasm. The 18th year later, she says just as enthusiastic. I don't know if I deserved it. I don't know if I was such a good father. But it was so meaningful to me that she would tell me this. She told me that I was patient. She told me I was a good husband. She told me I was talented. She told me I was smart. She told me all these things. I don't think I deserved such good compliments, but it made such a difference to me, and it meant so much to me. There were times when I did things that probably she could have been critical of. I know that there were things I did that she didn't agree with, but she never said anything. She never criticized anything I did. Sometimes she would say, it's not my problem. It's not our problem. If she didn't agree, as far as she was concerned, it was none of her business. But there are so many things that she did make her business. It was her business to help us out. It was her business to help us shopping. It was her business to give us advice when we asked for it. When we asked for advice on any range of things, she made it her business to help us out. But if I did something stupid, it was none of her business. Sometimes I thought she didn't notice things. Sometimes I would do something and I was wondering why she didn't notice it, something that maybe I didn't want her to notice. But I think she did notice it, at least a lot more than I thought. But as far as she was concerned, it wasn't her problem. Mommy and Daddy stayed by us for months at a time, and there was no issues whatsoever. The room that they stayed in was a room that we used for other things, and it wasn't such an easy arrangement. But they never complained at all. They said you can come in whenever you want if you need something. Whenever they came, Mom always had a bag of had gifts, had something for the kids. They also used to buy me things sometimes. I remember one time I bought a coat, I think it was, a suit, whatever. So Mom said, that looks so good on you, I want to pay for it. We were hoping that we could take care of Mommy the same way that she took care of Bubby. But she left us too soon. We lost that opportunity. But there's no way, even if we would have had it, there's no way we would have been anything close to what you did for your mother. I also was thinking that I should point out that Dasi and Aviva, from the time Mom was sick, they hardly ever left her side. And it means so much to all of us that you were able to take care of her so much. We hope that Mom will be a Meilus Yosher for the rest of us and for all Klal Yisrael.
Please rise for the Kabbalah.
El Malei Rachamim Shochein B'Amaromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'Malos Kedoshim U'Tahorim K'Zohar Ki HaMazhirim Es Nishmas Et Larachol Bas Yaakov Kopol Sheholcha Li'olama Bavor She'anachnu Mispalilim Biad Haskaras Nishmasa Biganei Eden Tehei Menuchasa Lachein Baal harachamim yastireha b'seiser kinafav liolamim v'yitzror b'tzror hachayim es nishmasa Adonai hu nachalasa V'sanuach b'shalom al vishkava v'nomar amen.
This concludes our service here in the chapel. Before we will take it the families' plots at Har Menuchos, 12 o'clock p.m. Thursday afternoon. Immediately upon return from Eretz Yisrael, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Loewenstein residence, 6311 North Whipple. The details for that information, as well as Minyanim, will be posted on our website. For those of you who are online, we thank you for joining. One correction, Shiva will be starting immediately, actually, tomorrow, just for family. From 10 to 2? And 6 to 9, which times will be posted on ChicagoJewishFunerals.com at the Loewenstein residence, 6311 North Whipple Street. Memorial contributions in Mrs. Loewenstein's memory can be made to Kol Chibas Yerushalayim. That information, along with the updated Shiva information, will be available on our website. I'd like to ask the grandchildren sitting in this row over here, as well as the two sons-in-law, to step forward at this moment to serve as pallbearers as we all rise, as we escort casket of Mrs. Loewenstein from the chapel.